Now the U.S., in order to keep sending bombs to a genocidal entity murdering children, has to alter reports that have been written. This has to do with the stance that the U.S. has argued, well, it's not Israel that's stopping the aid from getting in. Israel is allowing the aid in, which is laughable, but still. So this is from The Guardian, not a minor outlet. U.S. State Department falsified a report absolving Israel on Gaza aid, ex-official says. So there's kind of two stories here. The ongoing mutiny inside the State Department, inside other U.S. Government organizations, where people are quitting their entire career path because of the genocide the U.S. is helping commit right now. That's one story. The other story is the fact that in order to make it sound like it's okay for us to keep sending missiles to Israel to bomb children, the U.S. is lying in reports saying that Israel is allowing aid in. The State Department falsified a report earlier this month to absolve Israel responsibility for blocking humanitarian aid flows into Gaza, overruling the advice of its experts, according to a former senior U.S. official who resigned. Stacey Gilbert left her post as senior civil military advisor in the State Department's...
Civil.
Yeah.
Like I said, the people who are civil are the ones committing genocide.
This is the civil military.
Fuck me.
Department's Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration on Tuesday. She had been one of the department's subject matter experts who drafted the report. So she wrote the report saying Israel's not allowing aid into Gaza.
And what? She found a conscience under her bed one night? Like what happened?
Yeah, then her bosses changed the report. Yeah.
Oh, so she actually reported what was accurate.
She reported the accurate.
Oh, yeah. I see. Okay.
And then her bosses changed it. The NSM-20 report found that it was reasonable to assess that Israel had used U.S. weapons. Well, so that's another one of these red lines, is whether U.S. weapons are being used to kill civilians in a way that was, quote, you're going to like this word, inconsistent with international humanitarian law, but that there was not enough concrete evidence to link specific U.S. supply weapons to violations.
Even it literally says "Made in USA" like
across the
children
bombs.
Holding up the leftovers of these bombs that said "Made in the U.S." Like I can't with these fucking idiots.
It says "Made in the USA" and it was signed by Nikki Haley, and they're like, no, we're not. Even more controversially, the report said the State Department did not, quote, currently assess that the Israeli government is prohibiting or otherwise restricting the transport or delivery of U.S. humanitarian assistance. Dude, they shot at people who came out to get the food. They shot them under a clause. So I've mentioned this before. The U.S. actually has a clause in the Foreign Assistance Act that says the U.S. cannot send bombs to a country that is stopping U.S. aid from getting to the bombed people.
I mean, we also supposedly have free speech. So,
I know.
You know.
I know.
I don't think that's
none of them matter.
Yeah,
I know. The U.S. would be obliged to cut arms sales and security assistance to any country found to have blocked delivery of U.S. aid. Gilbert, who's been in the State Department for 20 years, said that the report's conclusion went against the overwhelming view of State Department experts who were consulted on the report. She said there was general agreement that Israel was playing a role in limiting the amount of food and medical supplies crossing the border into Gaza.
To the party, man.
Now the U.S., in order to keep sending bombs to a genocidal entity murdering children, has to alter reports that have been written to say the opposite of the reality so that they can keep sending aid and bombs to the genocidal Israel.
Again, would just like to also point out once more that this is a Democratic administration.
So you're saying these are the good guys?
Yeah.
So here's this is actually a different point in the article, but I've not heard many people. Stephen Simler actually was the one who pointed me to this.
Oh, he's great.
This part of it. Yeah. Gilbert, that's the person who quit, who we were just talking about, who resigned, was one of 2 U.S. officials to resign just this week over Biden administration's Gaza policy. And a point I've made repeatedly is that the reason this is a big deal is because these are people who believed in the U.S. empire. These are not you and me. These are people who spent their careers inside the U.S. empire machine, and this is too far for them. They actually are waking up to the reality due to this genocide. The other one was Alexander Smith, a contractor for the U.S. agency, well, USAID, who resigned on Monday, said he was, now this is amazing. So I've made fun of Samantha Power before. Some of you may know Samantha Power got her fame by writing a book called The Responsibility to Protect, I think that's what it was called. And it was about how the U.S. has a responsibility to help genocided peoples, to go in and save peoples who are being genocided. Now she's the head of USAID, which is ignoring, at minimum, the genocide in Gaza. He resigned on Monday, and he said he was given a choice between resignation and dismissal after preparing a presentation on maternal and child mortality among Palestinians, which was canceled at the last minute by USAID leadership. And get this, that's his job, actually. Smith, a senior advisor on gender, maternal health, child health, and nutrition, chose to resign on Monday after 4 years at USAID. In his resignation letter to the head of the agency, Samantha Power, he complained about the inconsistencies in USAID's approach to different countries and humanitarian crises and the general treatment of Palestinians. He said, I cannot do my job in an environment in which specific people cannot be acknowledged as fully human, or where gender and human rights principles apply to some, but not to others, depending on their race.
Well, my dear, you're in the wrong business, if that's how you genuinely feel.
And just one last point, which I think is a pretty big one. Smith and Gilbert bring the total of the Biden administration officials who have publicly resigned over Gaza to 9. However, as many have said, perhaps 24 others have resigned, but not been a big public declaration. They've just quietly resigned. There's an ongoing mutiny inside this government for facilitating this genocide.
Agreed.